There's a big reason people in crisis may ignore your commands, and many officers don't realize it until it's too late. You've probably seen people act on impulse, saying or doing things that made no sense or even against their own best interest. Like suddenly bolting toward the door when two officers are blocking the way. Maybe they were locked in short term thinking, not looking at consequences or seeing a way out. Like a suicidal subject who can't see past the pain of today, no matter what you tell them. Where they flat out disregard your authority, ignoring you, pushing back, cursing at your commands, even when it only makes things worse for them. If you've ever felt the frustration of someone in crisis behaving this way, this video will help make sense of it for you. I'm Troy Siewert, a nationally certified law enforcement instructor and retired police lieutenant. I spent 30 years on the job and resolved over 1,000 mental health crisis calls. Now I train police officers in practical communication strategies designed to help them approach crisis calls with more confidence and more control. In this video, we're going to break down why people in crisis act impulsively, short-sighted, or defiant in the moment, what's really going on in their brain when that happens, and most importantly, how you can respond in a way that keeps control and improves safety on scene. First things first. Let's call out something every officer has to consider. When someone in crisis is acting impulsive, short-sighted, or even defiant, there could be several reasons. It might be substance use, it could be a medical condition, it may be mental illness, or even a combination of these factors. As officers, we need to try to determine which of these, if any, might be driving the behavior we're seeing. But here's why this next part is so important. Even when none of these factors are present, the intensity of a crisis itself can throw off how a person thinks, listens, and makes decisions. And that matters because situations like this come up on nearly every crisis call. If we don't understand how that intensity impacts their behavior, we risk misreading them, pushing harder, and making things worse. If we do understand it, we can adjust, keep control, and stay safer on scene. That's what we're going to focus on in the rest of this video. What do I mean when I say someone is in crisis? It's when someone is so overwhelmed by what they're facing that they just can't cope. You see it as impulsive behavior, short-term thinking, or total disregard for authority. In other words, they're overwhelmed and it shows. So what's going on? Well, let's start simple. Think of the brain as having two main levels. First, the downstairs brain. This area includes the brainstem and the limbic system. Among other things, it controls fight, flight, and freeze responses. It's about pure emotion and survival. And then there's the upstairs brain, which contains the neocortex, including the prefrontal cortex. And that's where reasoning, judgment, rationalization, and decision-making live. Here's the catch. Brain isn't just one or the other, upstairs or downstairs. It's not like a light switch flipping between the two. It's more like a dimmer switch or dial. The more a person feels threatened or stressed, the more that dial turns toward the downstairs brain, causing responses higher in emotion and based on fight, flight, or freeze. Now, the safer and calmer they feel, the more the dial turns toward the upstairs brain, allowing for better reasoning, judgment, rationalization, and logic. So when an individual feels threatened and stress skyrockets, logic and reason may not totally disappear, but they do get dialed way down. And that's why under pressure, people make short-sighted decisions, perhaps not even in their own best interest. They react emotionally. They ignore authority. It's not necessarily willful disrespect, it's biology. Here's the tricky part. The brain doesn't really separate physical threats from psychological ones. Being chased by a dog feels threatening, right? But so can loss of dignity, threat to ego, being disrespected, losing control, or having a choice in what happens, feeling powerless, or having an officer stand over them, giving them loud commands. All of these can be interpreted by the brain as threatening. Here's an example of a psychological threat. You call someone out in front of family or neighbors. Something like, you need to calm down right now or you're going to jail. Even without physical contact, their ego feels attacked and their dignity stripped away. That hit to their self image is perceived as a threat, and their brain reacts the same way as if there was an actual physical danger. It dials toward the fight, flight, or freeze. See, it doesn't matter if the threat is physical or just perceived. The effect is the same. The brain dials downstairs into emotions and survival mode. And the more it dials down, the less access they have to upstairs functions like judgment, reasoning, and self control. So, what does that look like on a call? Let me give you a familiar example. And you've been there arguing with someone who's furious, and nothing you say seems to get through. They were yelling and screaming, acting on impulse, showing little respect for your authority, and not hearing a word you said. That's a downstairs brain moment. Their emotional system is running the show, while their rational brain is barely on. On a crisis call, it can look like someone pacing, yelling, or refusing clear instructions, a person repeating themselves over and over, or someone lashing out at you even though you're just there trying to help. If you expect sound, well thought out reasoning from them in that moment, you're asking the brain to do something it literally can't do yet. Now, stick with me because in just a minute, I'll show you how to use this information to improve communication and stay safer. So, why does any of this matter for us in uniform, Troy? Because if we don't recognize what's happening, we may treat the individual's behavior like stubbornness or willful disobedience, when in reality, it's incapacity. And if we lean harder on authority in these moments, while they're stuck downstairs, they often escalate and the safety risk grows. This is where safety and communication work together. By lowering any perceived threat to the person in crisis, you can actually lower the chance of resistance, helping to stabilize the situation and increase safety. See, understanding the brain isn't about going soft. It's about being strategic. When you recognize what's actually going on, you can respond in a way that helps move their dial upstairs, allowing them to understand you better. And when you understand this, you reduce resistance, cut down use of force risk, and increase safety for everyone. So here's the big tactical takeaway for us. You cannot rationalize someone in crisis upstairs. Yet how many of us have tried to do this? And I know I have. We explain ourselves 7 different ways to Sunday, but they just don't get it. The lesson? First, you help them regulate their emotions by reducing perceived threats, for example. Then you reason. That doesn't mean dropping your guard. It means using tactics that reduce your perceived threat while you maintain actual officer safety. Examples: take your time, don't rush, maintain distance, don't crowd them, Use calm, confident tone. Avoid quick or surprise movements if possible. And use respectful language without giving up control. It's not soft, it's tactical. Let's say you're on a call with someone standing outside their own home, visibly upset. They're pacing on the porch, cursing under their breath, and not responding to your questions. If you rush in fast and loud, they'll see you as the threat, and the dial goes further downstairs. But if you slow down, keep safe distance, lower your volume, and start with a non-threatening statement like, "Seems like you're upset. What's going on today?" You buy yourself some space. The dial may ease up a bit. They may start to come back upstairs. And now you've got a shot at real communication. But notice I didn't say don't move in. If there's an imminent danger or if safety requires it, you act, period. Safety is always first. When you're able to, though, slowing things down can provide options. So the next time you're on a crisis call and you see someone acting impulsive, locked into short-term thinking, or showing little respect for authority, don't automatically read it as stubbornness or disrespect. While always maintaining officer safety, remember that what looks like defiance in the moment may actually be substance use, a medical issue, a mental illness, or, as we've discussed here, simply a brain in crisis mode. Dialed more toward the downstairs brain and unable to think clearly in the moment. Your goal is to move that dial back upstairs and stabilize the scene, keeping yourself safe by using proper tactics and minimizing anything potentially seen as a threat so they can understand you and make better decisions. Because when they can finally reason again, that's when your words make the difference. If this helped, subscribe now so you're not caught guessing on your next call. And grab my free email series, The Insightful Responder. It's one tool a month you can use on your very next shift. I've included the link below. Here's the bottom line. In a crisis, what you say next can change everything. So train to respond, not just react. Because calm, confident action changes everything.